Welcome, everybody, to the Channel Vision Magazine webinar featuring Blackfoot Communications, which says SD-WAN is an easier way to manage your network. I'm your moderator, Bruce Christian, Senior Editor of Channel Vision Magazine. Our presenters include Todd Tweedy, Blackfoot Director of Sales and Marketing, and Eric Mittling, Product Management Specialist at Blackfoot. Also with us are Curtis Lyon, Meraki Systems Engineer at Cisco Systems, and Marcus Colazzo, a Public Sector Account Executive for Cisco Meraki. And Rob Feenstra, Network Engineering Manager at Blackfoot Communications, will be joining us later when we open up the Q&A session. With that, let me turn it over to Todd.
Thank you, Bruce, and happy first day of fall. I certainly appreciate everyone carving some time out of your busy schedules to join the Blackfoot and Cisco teams for the next hour or so. The old cliche, the only constant is change, has never seemed more appropriate as I evaluate Blackfoot's heritage and contemplate our future courtesy of a recently updated strategic plan. 60 plus years ago, our focus, believe it or not, was providing simple voice services to ranchers and farmers in rural Montana. Today, we are delivering cell backhaul to some of the world's largest mobile providers, helping our residential customers manage their bandwidth and applications at home, rapidly expanding our fiber footprint across Montana and Idaho, and as we're about to discuss, simplifying network management for mid-sized businesses and large enterprise customers. Okay, so on to the task at hand. Given the phrase managed services is somewhat generic, I thought we'd start by sharing our definition or creating a level set in terms of how Blackfoot defines managed services. Our managed services suite contains offerings specific to network, security, communications, and support. Simplifying network management becomes a reality courtesy of our network service offerings, including SD-WAN, failover, managed connectivity, etc. Our security offerings are delivered by leveraging our partnership with Cisco and their Meraki platform. Our communications offering is delivered courtesy of a managed VoIP platform. And finally, all of our managed services offerings are supported by our in-house subject matter experts and our technical assistance center, which operates on a 24/7 basis. So with any customer engagement, we employ a four-step methodology. Phase one is really a discovery session geared towards understanding business drivers, needs, and requirements. At this point, we have no foregone conclusions about technology solutions or even if there are any synergies. That said, the goal of the initial discovery session is to identify business drivers and outline next steps. Phases 2 and 3 are very specific to our network engineering and operations teams, where their certifications, extensive knowledge, and refined processes are leveraged to design and implement a given managed services solution. Blackfoot employs the use of a pod, POD, model, which is a three-person team comprised of a sales, engineering, and implementation resource. The pod is expected to own any engagement from cradle to grave and affords our customers with multiple points of contact within Blackfoot. Last but certainly not least is phase 4, which is the ongoing management of our solutions. Rather than a one and done scenario that is often associated with an equipment purchase or the do-it-yourself implementation, Blackfoot is committed to the day in, day out, month in, month out support of our solutions. Eric, you want to pick it up from here?
Cool. All right. So now that we kind of laid some of the groundwork, or I guess the foundation of sort of our approach to delivering managed services and kind of how we support our clients, kind of wanted to narrow down a little bit more just around, I guess, what is a managed service at Blackfoot, and then more specifically, what is managed SD-WAN, because that's kind of the topic of this webinar, right? So, specific, I guess, more generically, managed services at Blackfoot, all of those managed services that Todd had highlighted in the previous slide, there's no upfront cost with those. We build in sort of a turnkey solution for all of these managed services where you don't have to come up with any capital upfront. It's all built into a monthly service fee. That's really optimized. You can see on the top, they're optimized to each customer's unique needs, right? So this isn't just a cookie cutter approach. We take that advisory services approach that Todd talked about and really customize and cater, a managed solution that fits each one of our customers and whatever their unique business needs are. Getting a little more specific with SD-WAN and what a managed SD-WAN solution looks like at Blackfoot. Again, it's a turnkey solution. So we're providing you with all of the licensing, all of the hardware that's required. That would include the edge devices at each one of your service locations. Sort of the turnkey aspect of it, right? We're going to design, we're going to configure, install, and then continue to provide you ongoing support for your network, right? As it relates to managed SD-WAN. A little bit more granular there. What that includes is sort of performance tuning of your network. So that's sort of it through that advisory services approach, figuring out what it is that your business needs, making sure that the applications that really matter to your business are being prioritized appropriately, working on whatever your business policies may be to ensure that the system works and meets your needs. And then, continuing to support that throughout the entire life cycle of that deployment, right? Monitoring your network, making sure that if there's any issues that arise, whether it's a connectivity issue, whether it's a policy change that needs to happen, you're adding a new branch, whatever that may be, that is all covered and provided within this monthly recurring, very predictable fee. And that's something that a lot of our clients have seen a lot of value in, is that predictability of that recurring fee, instead of having to try to figure out and plan for sort of what's next or what if this breaks, and making sure that they're including those in all their capital budgets for each fiscal year. So getting a little bit deeper into sort of SD-WAN, really what is SD-WAN? That's a good question, right? So in a lot of the conversations that we've had with our existing clients and new clients, I've personally found that the definition of SD-WAN and really the understanding of SD-WAN varies greatly depending on who you're talking to. There's just varying degrees of what that means. So what I want to do is kind of level set and give sort of a high level overview of kind of how, how we see SD-WAN, right? How we define SD-WAN here. And then later on, our friends over at Cisco, they're going to do, a deeper dive and kind of show off all the different bells and whistles, features and functionality, with SD-WAN, particularly with the Meraki solution, and kind of cap it off with a demo too, which will be really great. But again, just wanting to kind of level set and make sure that we sort of understand what SD-WAN is. So start off, a while back, I was working with one of our engineers. We were on a sales call talking to a client about SD-WAN, and he came up with this sentence up here on the left side of the slide there that I thought did a really good job of sort of boiling down what SD-WAN is at kind of a high level, and kind of level set with a lot of the clients we talked to, and frankly it just really resonated with me, right? Where SD-WAN is the next generation of enterprise network routing that helps businesses really of all size make sure that their network is protected from downtime, while adding these benefits of optimizing their performance for efficiency, scalability, all that good stuff. So how does it do that, right? So how does it protect a business from downtime, and then do all that great stuff like optimizing performance, efficiency, scalability? In the image there off to the right, you can see those are kind of the building blocks or the different service components of just kind of a generic SD-WAN topology, right? You can see at the core, SD-WAN, what it is, it provides a virtual overlay network that uses VPN tunnels. So you can see those the green lines there, right? Those are different connectivity options that are leveraging VPN tunnels to connect different branch locations. Whether that's a branch or a virtual branch up in the cloud, whatever it may be, leveraging those VPN tunnels to enable connectivity and technically enabling application-aware, policy-driven connectivity between those different locations. Then kind of the next sort of special sauce of SD-WAN, right, is that it's all sort of orchestrated through this cloud-based orchestrator or single pane of glass, kind of the eye in the sky, I think is what one of our engineers likes to call it, where you're able to, really orchestrate all your different policies, from that single pane of glass, and customize your different policies and really modify them in real time to make sure that it's meeting your business requirements. Another, very interesting thing, I think, is the overlay network can leverage, pretty much any last mile circuit connectivity option that can be available at any of your different branch locations. That includes MPLS, which is shown there, Ethernet, broadband connections, coax cable connections, even LTE, to be able to connect those different locations. And I think we'll get into this a little bit more later too, but one of the most powerful aspects of this is being able to use all of those connections at the same time to load balance traffic. And then again, using that orchestrator capability, being able to performance tune and sort of customize and tweak how you're leveraging each of those circuits or multiple circuits. 2 is kind of a minimum, right? You can go up to 3, and depending on the device and hardware and platform, there's so many different options that you can leverage and kind of fine tune and tweak how you want to connect to the different business applications that you need to, how you want traffic to traverse over your network, and really, again, customize it and fine tune it. So now we've kind of level set a little bit, right, on kind of what it is from a structural perspective. And I kind of started talking and touching on some of the benefits, but these are some of the core benefits that we're seeing with a lot of our clients that are adopting SD-WAN. And I kind of touched on this first one, right, that protecting against service outages. So, probably pretty easy to understand, right? You're able to leverage multiple circuits, so that's going to give you better protection against service outages, right? That's pretty straightforward and easy to understand. But what I think really adds the value and what makes SD-WAN a little bit different than some of the other, routing and networking technologies of the past, right, is that second bullet point, being able to optimize that bandwidth utilization. So leveraging, load balancing across both of those circuits, you're not only getting the benefit of protecting yourself from a service outage, but you're now able to leverage both of those circuits at the same time to make sure that you're using your bandwidth to its maximum. I know we have a lot of clients that historically have had a failover circuit that was basically sitting dormant and not necessarily being used, but it was there to protect against service outages, right? But now being able to leverage SD-WAN kind of opens up the door to more flexibility to be able to utilize all of those circuits at the same time, and again, optimizing your utilization. And then, maybe skipping ahead a couple bullets to prioritizing key business applications. You can kind of prioritize different, as your bandwidth needs grow, and being able to use that quote unquote failover circuit that you maybe used to use in the past. Now you can just throw random traffic over the top of that. Like, if you want your employees to be watching YouTube or you allow it, that's low priority. You can ship it off on the lowest priority, lowest quality circuit that's available at the time. So again, just allowing you to be more efficient and effective with how you're utilizing the bandwidth at each of your branch locations. Advanced security capabilities. Again, I think we'll touch more on that when our Cisco friends start talking. But inherently there's a lot of security features built in just out of the box with a lot of the appliances that we support with SD-WAN. But there's also a wide variety of different add-ons and different services and licensing options that can be tacked on to make sure that your network is as secure as possible. And another part of that too is partnering with Blackfoot to having those security features available, but also having them put together and designed in a smart and efficient way is something that is another benefit of more specifically a benefit of partnering with Blackfoot and deploying a managed SD-WAN solution. Next we've been sort of managing bandwidth costs. I'm going to talk about this a little bit more in the next slide too, around how we're seeing some of our clients managing their costs. But again, it comes down to that flexibility, right? Being able to pick and choose different connectivity types to sort of fine tune and customize, the quality of service you need, and being able to really manage your bandwidth costs as your bandwidth needs continue to arise, right? Leveraging some different, more affordable sort of broadband commodity type circuits to offload, some of that, traffic growth that you're seeing. Increasing scalability, again, with the orchestrator, that sort of cloud-based platform, having all of your business policies in place, application prioritization, all that good stuff. You're able to scale up, and we're able to turn up different branch locations for customers very, very quickly. So it allows for increased scalability from that perspective, but also, again, when you're partnering with Blackfoot, you're able to leverage the resources that we have available to be able to help you grow faster and more efficiently. So we had kind of touched a little bit, around some of these sort of managing bandwidth costs, right? So transitioning to SD-WAN, it kind of, again, references back to that flexibility of being able to pick the different, circuit types that your business might need. These are kind of common examples and that we've been seeing with a lot of our clients where, leveraging an alternative circuit type is really a common thing, again, that we're seeing. So as those bandwidth needs are continuing to grow with clients, in an organization, you can be a lot smarter about how you're growing, how you're supporting that bandwidth growth by picking and choosing different circuit types, right? So one of the a very common scenario we see with our existing clients, they have an existing MPLS network in place today. Their bandwidth needs continue to grow. They would rather not, pay premium to upgrade existing MPLS or Ethernet circuits. So looking to SD-WAN to be able to offload some of that bandwidth onto a broadband or an LTE or whatever it may be type circuit to sort of help level out those costs. And the first bullet point too, there's the fussy savings, right? So regulated circuits, there's a tax that's applied to those. So being able to leverage some of that flexibility in the different types of circuits you're choosing, some of our clients are able to see cost savings there, which can kind of help offset some of the sort of upgrade expenses that may be associated with transitioning to SD-WAN. So you can kind of take what you have now and be able to transition to SD-WAN with very little impact to your budget, while gaining all those benefits that we had just previously talked about. So with that, I think maybe we'll dive a little deeper. I'll hand it back to Todd, and he can do some intros to our Cisco friends. So,
you bet. Thanks, Eric. In my opening remarks, I mentioned the cliche of the only constant is change. Again, that is certainly an appropriate characterization of our industry and life at Blackfoot over the years. Case in point, our recently updated strategic plan includes an initiative to continue our transformation as a managed services provider. For me personally, this initiative is a big part of my focus, but the commitment and vision to continue this transformation ladders all the way up to Jason Williams, the gentleman that sits in the corner office. As such, while we continue the expansion of our fiber network on a parallel path, we have identified network services that we believe will deliver significant value to our multi-site customers who have locations scattered across the Western US and are both on our network and off our network. Given the strategic significance of the MSP transformation, we are thrilled to have partnered with Cisco to help round out our suite of managed services with their Meraki platform. Cisco has been an icon in the industry for decades, and while historically Blackfoot's relationship with Cisco has been more or less specific to the management of our core network, I'm confident that our expanded partnership will be a long and mutually beneficial one. At this point, I'm going to hand things off to our Cisco teammates, Marcus and Curtis. Good afternoon, guys, and thanks for tag teaming with us today.
Good afternoon, Todd, and thank you, Eric, for talking about SD-WAN there and introducing us as well. And hello to everybody. Pleasure to be presenting for you all today. As Todd was saying, my name is Marcus Collazo. I work over at Cisco Meraki as an account executive. I focus on the public sector side of the business, but I do cover the states of Montana, Wyoming, Nebraska, and Idaho. With me today is my rock star sales engineer, Curtis Lyon. Curtis, well, before we get into the slides, why don't you say hello to everybody so they can hear your beautiful voice?
They're going to hear my voice plenty when we get in the demo portion, but hey everyone, I'm Curtis Lyon here. Your point contact for anything technical in Meraki. So happy to help out today.
Awesome, thanks Curtis. So as we talk about Cisco Meraki, I thought it'd be good to kind of start where we came from, right? Who is Meraki? Why did Cisco acquire us? When did this all happen? So Meraki actually started back in 2008. There was a couple of grad students out in Boston who didn't have a good solution for wireless connectivity in their dorm halls. And they're all graduate students, so they're all pretty smart. And they're trying to figure out a way, hey, wouldn't it be great if we could figure out, to put some antennas up on each other's roofs and have them send signals back and forth and create like this free wireless network. We're in college, we don't have money to pay for bills like that. We want to go buy food and pizza and beers and all that fun stuff, right? How do we make this simple for everybody? So they did exactly that. They did this thing that was now known as the RoofNet project, where they put repeaters, access points on each other's roofs in their little dorm neighborhood and had them send packets back and forth to each other, creating what was known as one of the first wireless mesh networks out there. So this was really great. And obviously they were very popular in the neighborhood for giving out free Wi-Fi, but they were in Boston and, they had to troubleshoot these things by going up and down to the roofs, plug in, unplug in. This was a very net new project. So there was a lot of mistakes being made and that was fine until winter came. right? It's cold. It gets cold in the snow. So they don't want to have to keep climbing up to the roofs and fixing everything. So then that's when the next idea came, right? How do we figure out a way to troubleshoot and have visibility into this network without actually having to go and freeze our butts off up on the roof, right? So they had this idea of a cloud managed networking system. Google actually funded them before they even had a dashboard to show you that we're going to show you guys today. Google was like, this is a great idea. We want to get behind it. Fast forward 4 years in 2012, and you can go ahead and move to the next slide here. Cisco purchased Meraki back in 2012 as we were just a wireless network. Just a wireless company. Back then, we had about 14,000 active Meraki networks. Today, we're looking at over 3.3 million worldwide. And a big reason for that is because we don't just focus on the wireless side anymore. We're a full network stack solution. So having Cisco backing us allowed us to grow our portfolio out more, from the wireless to the switching to the security and the SD-WAN focus, which we're going to talk about a little bit today. But not just on that. You can go to the next slide. We have a full stack of everything from networking equipment to your edge management to even IoT devices. So I touched on a few of those there, right? The access points is the MR, the switches is the MS. MX is what we're going to be focusing on today, but there's a few other ones in there that tie in. The MG is a cellular gateway. This is something where if you're not able to get internet connectivity run out to certain rural areas, which I know there definitely are some in Montana, we could set up a cellular gateway there where you could have a cellular connectivity kind of be the backbone of your network or as a failover. MI is an application and insight. MI is Meraki Insight, and it's an application analytics tool that pairs very well with our firewall appliance, the MX. So think about things like Google Drive, Dropbox, being able to figure out where issues are happening with connectivity between that, your network, or even on their servers. It allows you to break it down a lot more simple. SM is our systems manager. It's mobile device management, so endpoint solutions. So think about your kids' devices, right? You don't want them on YouTube all day. You can go onto our dashboard and you can limit the amount of time or limit the bandwidth to YouTube so they're not playing with Roblox or whatever the fun things are that kids play with these days. I have a niece and nephew. That's the only reason I know that. Besides that, we have MV, which is our security cameras that are all cloud managed. Biggest thing on here with the security cameras, if you guys ever have a need for them, there's no NVR needed, right? So there's no actual server box you need to have everything set up for. We actually host storage on the camera and in the cloud. So that's something that in the future, if you're ever interested in taking a look at, highly recommend it. And then MT finally is our newest product. It's for environmental sensors. So things like, checking for flooding, right, in server rooms, or making sure that temperatures are right in certain areas, that there's not overheating in switches. All of these things that we just mentioned here have all been generated within the last 9 to 10 years by the Cisco Meraki product team, and they're all managed from that same single pane of glass dashboard, which you see as the image there on the right side. Next slide, please. And that's really where our value comes in. We are a single pane of glass solution, right? Partnering with the companies like Blackfoot only makes us stronger, only makes Blackfoot stronger, because we have this one single pane of glass where they can manage all their customers, they can manage all your sites at your company, and make sure everything is not only integrated together, but it communicates well together. And we do that with our licensing model. So within Meraki, obviously, when you think about the cloud, you think, oh, reoccurring costs, that they're going to be nickel and dime to me. That's where everything's going wrong. That's not how we like to do things here. So with Meraki, it's one-to-one. For every piece of hardware, you have its own license for that. It's a unique license that goes with that piece of hardware. That license essentially acts as everything for the hardware, right? It is the identity of that individual piece of hardware on the dashboard in your network. What comes with that? That's 24/7 enterprise Cisco support and warranties for any kind of hardware failures or software failures. Any kind of firmware updates, software upgrades, and any features that we release. We actually just roll it out for you. A lot of other companies out there, and I'm not going to name names, but if you've checked them out, you probably know a little bit about them. They like to say, hey, new features out there. If you just add another $10.99 to your monthly fees that we're getting, you can get this, no problem. Cisco Meraki, we just email you in the morning and say, hey, turn your dashboard on. You have this now. Happy birthday. It's something that we give to all of our customers. So we like to say, the day that you get your Meraki network, it's going to be running the worst it'll ever run, because within 5 years, you still have it. There's going to be so much more cool stuff you're doing with it. We're always growing. We're always making things better. And that really comes with the power of the stack, right? I showed you all the different pieces of hardware that we sell and that we can really offer. And really, the more that you have with Meraki, the better, right? That's not just a sales pitch. I promise you, the fact that you have every part of your network with Cisco Meraki all on that same single pane of glass, it makes your life a lot easier. You're not having to go between different management platforms or talking to Blackfoot and saying, hey, Blackfoot, I need you to check in with this company about our switches, or this company with our wireless access points, or this company with our security platform, because we were just kind of price shopping around. Having everything on that same single pane of glass management tool allows you to focus more on projects and be more forward thinking on them rather than reacting to any issues that you might be having and having a lot of downtime. This visibility that we're going to be going into showing you today is really just that. It's a tool to make your life more simple. Meraki's whole message is simplicity. Now, the portfolio we're going to be going over today, as I mentioned, and as we've been talking about, is our security platform, right? We're focusing on SD-WAN, but the important thing to remember is that the SD-WAN is an application tool that is used in our MX security appliance. Now, what is an MX? An MX is a firewall in its most pure sense form, but it doesn't just do that. It does SD-WAN, it does VPNing, and the best thing about that is that Cisco is actually the top security company in the world. So you know that you're getting top to bottom support and security from these devices right at the beginning of your network. We have different models here that we're looking at, depending on the sizing of your network that you have, the throughput of internet speeds that you're getting, depending on those speeds and the ups and downs. These are the different firewalls that would fit for you. But the important thing to know is that at any of these models that we show here today, SD-WAN is available on it. It's not an extra cost. It just comes baked into the box. So we call our MX portfolio Unified Threat Management, UTM devices, because it's an all-in-one box. It's an all-in-one encompassing system there. So you come in with Cisco Meraki and you head on the security side, you're going to be protected from top to bottom. At this point now, I'm going to kick it over to Curtis, who's going to talk a little bit more about the SD-WAN and how Meraki plays into it, and then we're going to lead that into the demo itself. So Curtis, take it away.
Perfect. Hey, everyone. Me again. Next slide, please. So we thought that the best way to kind of set the stage here is that Eric made a great comment earlier, and the fact that security is an integral part of any SD-WAN solution. Reason being is these devices are going to sit on the edge of your network. Kind of combining that with the fact that we're talking about maybe stripping away the importance of a privatized link like MPLS and moving all that data and bandwidth over to internet lines. The internet's the wild, wild west. Everything from ransomware to malware will be located on the edge of your network. And so I think it's critical that we also start looking at security. Really how we differentiate our portfolio compared to a lot of our competitors is we actually unify the platform. So you'll see once we're actually demoing this that we've actually labeled it as a security and SD-WAN device. And we've realized the importance of using both because we believe in both of our solutions. So to really set the stage here, what I'm going to represent as kind of our vision for security, specific to Meraki and specific to Cisco, is a graph I like to call the attack continuum. What the attack continuum is going to represent is the life cycle of an attack as it exists on your network. And historically, if you look at security and you look at how security was previously done, we only ever looked at before the attack took place. And by that, I mean, let's add 1,000,001 access lists. Let's add a bunch of websites we want to block on, and let's fortify the wall of our network. Unfortunately, we at Cisco, we are not going to promise you 100% security. In fact, if there is a vendor that promises you 100% security, I would challenge them. The attack surfaces are far too wide. The attack vectors themselves are far too advanced. At some point, attacks are going to get in. And what we're looking at differently is saying, all right, well, with the notion that we can't give you 100% certainty that we are going to protect you against every threat, how can we actually look at security a little bit differently? And how we tend to look at security is we actually want to look at during an attack. So if something were to get in, can we give you the tools and capabilities to make that distinction that, all right, this is what actually took place here, and how can we actually rectify that and contain this event? And then I think personally, the most important part is the after. I used to work in a security operations center previously before coming to Cisco. And I can't tell you the amount of times that edge devices were compromised and we had no knowledge in terms of how the attack got in, but we actually don't know who else the attack replicated across. If it was ransomware, effectively all we have to do is read write, flash the device, and give it back to that end host. Unfortunately, if we don't really know the scope of the attack, then we're just going to have to write erase every other device that would either be contained on that network. It just isn't scalable. So we really want to look at after the fact and figure out what was the scope of the damage, how did it occur, and how can we remediate this event from happening in the future. And so what's included as part of the Meraki solution is going to be three main things. There's 4 on screen right now, but I think 3 of which are the most important. We have advanced malware protection, we have IDS, IPS, and of course we offer content filters. This will be all on box on top of the SD-WAN appliance we currently offer. And that third step, threat grid, is going to be a virtualized sandbox, so that if threats do come in, you can actually sandbox those threats to figure out how they actually got into your network, what the threat actually did, and how you can actually remediate that threat from ever happening in the future. So how advanced malware protection is actually going to work on your network is a couple of different step process. And so what ends up happening is every time you as an end user chooses to download a file, what ends up occurring is that file will then be taken as a SHA-256 hash. And then what you're going to use that hash is you're actually going to send it up to the ANT cloud. That ANT cloud is going to look at that file hash and literally compare it to every other file it has seen before. Using that notion and taking that file hash, it's either going to give you a green light saying, hey, we've seen this file before, it's A-OK. Let's finish the download and let that file finish processing. However, if we've seen this before and it's a red light saying, hey, we've seen this before, this is actually a nested thread, you're actually going to hold the last bit of that file download, so the file ends up getting corrupted, and that user will be notified saying this file was not finished processing because it contains malware. So the best way to look at this is almost like crowdsourced security. The more and more people that leverage advanced malware protection, the better the solution becomes. And I know what you're probably thinking, well, shoot, if I'm at home and I want to download a terabit file, I can't afford to wait for that file to get processed, sent to the AMP cloud, get back to me. No, that terabit file is never going to be sent to Advanced Malware Protection Cloud. The only thing that is sent is that SHA-256 hash. And because of that, the round trip time it actually takes you to get a disposition on the file to figure out whether or not you can actually finish downloading or not is the average time, the average RTT is 7 sub-milliseconds. So you as the ed host won't even notice the fact that your file went to a different cloud repository, got a security disposition, and then got sent back to you. You'll notice that there is a possible 6th step involved with kind of this map here. And that notion is that if the file does go to AMP and it's saying, hey, we haven't seen this before, that's where you're actually going to send it to that virtual sandbox. And then from that virtual sandbox, you can time sparse it. So if you wanted to see how this file operates over the next 24 hours, you can do that instantaneously for any type of nested or embedded threats. And that can actually occur within a scope of 5 minutes too. Kind of touching on here for intrusion prevention is the notion that we're actually going to be doing deep packet inspection. So this is an analogy I like to give when we start talking about deep packet inspection, and it's really relevant because I'm about to go to the airport right after this. But in any case, if you just take your normal firewall rules, and we take an example of somebody who is trying to catch a flight, your firewall rules at the edge of your network are going to operate like anybody just checking your baseline passport. You getting to the airport, somebody looking at your passport, somebody looking at your tickets going, this person says they are who they say they are. Very similar to an access list that's using IP addresses to figure out who is allowed and who isn't allowed. However, IPS, that's like when you're going through security clearance and you're forced to go through the X-rays or sending your stuff through the metal detectors. That X-ray, that an analysis of you doing a deeper inspection on an individual is how we actually operate with IPS. We use snort-based signatures that are going to take indications of compromises and strings that could occur in packets, and then use that in form of reputation scores and string analysis to be able to figure out whether or not the packets themselves are corrupted or contain any type of malicious behavior. So the easiest way to look at things here is, if you don't like my analogy, is just a deeper inspection as opposed to just checking the header of certain packets. And not going to spend too much time here, but of course we offer content filters. So your ability to pick and choose categories that you want to block on. And then based on the websites and source address and destination addresses of the individuals trying to get to those sites, we use content-based category filters that are populated through a Bright Cloud database. So that database is updated and is kept concurrent with all recent websites or all recent IP addresses associated to website and the specific content and categories associated with such. And I think the biggest differentiator for us as a security platform is we are actually backed by the single largest non-government security agency in the world. And so Talos, what you're seeing on screen, is a security research agency. And what they do is they push updates to our security solutions. So it is a massive team. In fact, I'll kind of show you later when we go through the demo in terms of how you can actually access the resources to see what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. But just to kind of put this into perspective for you, just in blocked threats alone, so the amount of threats that they choose to block daily is close to 20 billion. And to kind of give you and to quantify that, the amount of time somebody Googles something per day is 3 billion. So the total amount of queries Google gets per day is 3 billion, but we do 7 times the order of magnitude over that in blocked threats only. And so what we do is if we see a day 0 incident happening in Asia, we can take that incident, push it in the form of either an IPS string, a content filter, or even our AMP disposition, and then update our security solutions. I'm going to kind of rush through this because I believe Eric did a great job of framing the conversation in terms of the importance of SD-WAN. So effectively what we're seeing on screen here is that before, when we used to centralize a lot of our resources, the importance for MPLS was massive. We needed a secure link because we needed to privatize the connections between things like our data centers or maybe district offices. And we wanted to really strip the importance of what internet was able to provide because we didn't want that on an unsecure medium. Flash forward, the cost of data and the bandwidth that you're able to get on internet now is so price conscious that it is really hard to compete and really hard to invest in something like an MPLS line anymore, just because the cost of which you're paying for data on an MPLS link versus the cost of data you're paying for on an internet link is massive. The delta between the two now is the furthest it's ever been in human history, and it's only going to keep getting wider. This is another point that Eric had alluded to earlier, but it's the notion that depending on the medium you want traversed on, we want to give you the option of being able to construct the traffic that actually needs to pass through both. So I'm not here today to tell you, hey, everyone get rid of your MPLS lines. That's far from the truth. I think that there's still a huge amount of importance on having a privatized WAN link. However, what we want to give you the ability of doing is constructing, this is the type of traffic that needs to pass through your privatized line, and this is the type of traffic that should pass through your internet line. Really giving you the options of being able to construct how you want your traffic to traverse either of your WAN links, or maybe even your cellular link. And how we actually do that is we can actually do that through the source and destination of where traffic is trying to go. We can do that through policy, being able to say, all right, if it exceeds a certain amount of threshold, send it through this link. And if this link fails, send it through this link instead. Or even performance classifiers to say any type of application, go through this specific WAN link or vice versa. And this will be the last slide on my end before we kind of wrap things up with Meraki value. But it's the idea that we want to simply give you a platform where you can express intent to say, this is how I want to choose my WAN links to operate. And then really giving you the capabilities of seeing how that actually operates in the environment. And this really just backs up everything Marcus had talked about earlier. We really are pioneers in the cloud managed networking space, and it shows in our statistics, really kind of backing it up with the total amount of active networks we have. We have over 500,000 active customers that have chosen to invest in Cisco Meraki. But everything else you're seeing on screen here shows how adaptable we are, because we even have some customers, I believe I'm allowed to disclose, they're a coffee chain, starts with an S, rhymes with Carbucks, that actively use Meraki at every single retail branch. And there's a couple of other ones too that double down and use one pane of glass to manage that entire infrastructure. So think about a global conglomerate like like Carbucks again, that use this one pane of glass to manage every retail branch they have in North America. That is the power of Meraki Cloud, and that's how we've been able to extend just deploying a wireless solution into being able to deploy something like an SD-WAN solution to interconnect every one of those sites and protect every one of those sites. So with that, I'm going to share my screen really quickly. And so I'll kind of speed through this, guys. And I think it's also worth noting, if there's anything that you see on dashboard that is of interest to you, or that you've heard from Marcus earlier in the presentation, please reach out to your Blackfoot counterpart, but also reach out to Marcus or myself, because we can do a far deeper dive into any one of the subsets of technology that Meraki offers. The demo that we're going to be going through today is actually going to be the Meraki corporate environment. So none of the traffic you're seeing today has been virtualized or constructed for the sake of this webinar. This is our real life traffic in the Meraki enterprise. So you can see that we have headquarters located in San Francisco, our Asia Pac headquarters in Sydney, everything else kind of sprinkled in between. But what you can also see is that we can actually color code our various sites. So we can actually pinpoint sites that are currently showing that devices are offline versus the sites that are optimized right now and performing as expected. So if you operate in a distributed environment, just from a bird's eye view, you really can get perspective in terms of how a site is operating, so that you can specifically pinpoint those individual sites. I wouldn't be a great party host if I didn't give you kind of a tour of my house first, but really just kind of sharing insights in terms of how dashboard is. If you kind of reference the left of the screen here, we really do outline all the technology that we can manage from a single pane of glass. So things like our security and SD-WAN appliance, which we'll touch on soon, our switches, wireless, our MDM solution to manage endpoints, cameras, and as Marcus said, we even have environmental sensors too. So if you actually click into an individual site here, let's pick on San Francisco for a second. What you'll immediately be taken to is the San Francisco network. And from the San Francisco network, as you can see from a bird's eye view, we have perspective in terms of seeing how our clients are currently operating. So we can see the overall data that's currently occurring through the San Francisco network right now, as well as the total amount of data, things like the total amount of applications and which applications right now are consuming the most bandwidth. We can even see all the clients that are connected into our environment, and we can start to filter for clients that are connected either via the switching, either directly connected to the MX appliance or security appliance, or maybe individuals that are connected via wireless too. More often than that, just to kind of give you perspective here, if we click into our available networks and we click into London for a second, you can see that instantaneously I was just taken to the London office. That's the power of a cloud-based solution, is my ability to pivot between networks, irrespective of where this is geographically located, is unmatched. And as you can see from here, I have the remote capabilities of troubleshooting and configuring a remote site that's located in Europe right now. I'm nowhere close to the site. You're gonna have to take my word for it and my lack of accent, but I'm nowhere close to the site right now, but I still have the remote capabilities of being able to see what's currently occurring here. Maybe let's stick on London for a second. And if we actually go through the security and SD-WAN appliance, there's a couple of interesting things that we can touch on. Number one, if we just click into firewall capabilities for a second, what you will notice is that our ability to go in and create things like a layer 3 rule are all very synonymous to things that you would have experienced with any other type of competitive solution. But where I think this solution really shines, outside of being able to construct things like a layer 3 access list, is we can actually jump in here and we can actually configure things like layer 7 application rules. And all of these are either based on things like an HTTP resolvable host name, a port range, or we can even pick specific country blocks. So if we wanted to say, you know what, let's deny all traffic to and from all the known addresses in Afghanistan, or maybe even Albania, you have the capabilities of doing that. And if you don't want to get granular in the form of your layer 7 firewall rules, if you click into this, you can actually pick any one of our content-based filters and just use it based on a category. So if we wanted to block specific peer-to-peer traffic, We could say, hey, you know what, let's block all P2P traffic, or we could actually jump in and we can pick the specific application that we don't want to allow. So for instance, we could pick BitTorrent, and the amount of firewall rules and layer 7 rules here you have are endless. So you can go in and you can configure as many as you want. Really doubling down on the notion and really touching on the simplicity in terms of how we can actually implement security-based services. All of those advanced security features I was talking about earlier, like advanced malware protection, like intrusion prevention, all of that is simply located in threat protection. So for instance, if we click into threat protection, for instance, you'll notice that we give you the option of turning on all of these different feature sets. So stuff like advanced malware protection, it's as easy as us being able to click enabled or disabled. And the same way for us being able to turn on things like IPS or IDS. That's how easy it is for the Meraki solution to be able to turn on these really advanced security feature sets. But you guys are here for SD-WAN. So let me actually show you how easy it is to be able to construct your own SD-WAN policies. So again, highlighting over the SD-WAN appliance again, intuitively enough, it will be located here in the SD-WAN and traffic shaping portion. If you actually click into this, you'll notice that we've actually kind of labeled and made things pretty much as easy as possible for you. So number one, really giving you the option of constructing not only your traffic limiters, but being able to say the traffic limiters on your WAN interfaces. So for whatever reason, if we wanted to limit the WAN traffic that currently exists on either one of our WAN interfaces, it's just a knob. You can simply turn it. And if you wanted to get more specific, obviously you can get down more into the nitty gritty, depending on maybe what you wanted your up and down to look like. We performed 4 tuple checks. So any type of networking based service like RTTs, ping tests, DNS resolvers, DHCP resolvers. You can set that up as far as your uplink statistics go. So if you set up something like Google 8.8.8, what this will do is this will maintain your statistics like RTT, network health links, or even the health of your WAN link in general. And you can use this address as just your resolvable address to perform the statistics that you need on your backend to see how your WAN links are currently looking. And easy enough, we can actually load balance between the WAN links too. So you can actually come in here and you can actually select which one of your WAN links you want to be your primary WAN link. Or what you can do is if you don't want one to be the primary or the secondary, you can still operate under a load balancing notion. And what load balancing will operate is purely based on the throughput involved in both links. So if the throughput involved in both links right now is a gigabit per second on both links, then 50% of the traffic is going to go through WAN 1, and then 50% of the traffic is going to go through WAN 2. If we set this up right now to, let's just say like 100 megs, then effectively what that would mean is that 10 times the traffic would go through WAN 1, and then 1/10 of the traffic would go through WAN 2. So that round robin will be purely dictated by the throughput that is enabled on both active WAN links, specifically to load balancing. You can see here, this is as easy as we can actually set up flow preferencing. So if there are specific source addresses or specific destination addresses that you want going through a specific WAN link, you can actually set that up here too. So a specific source link that you want only traversing WAN 1 can actually occur here. So depending on how your site has been subnetted or supernetted, this can be fairly granular so that you could say, hey, you know what, we want our student VLAN to only traverse one WAN link as opposed to the other. And as you can see here, we've also set up SD-WAN policies here too, to do things like use an uplink that's best for VoIP traffic or fail over to WAN links depending on if a link is specifically failed or not. And from here, you can actually see this is where we've set up our performance classes too, to say these are our performance thresholds for things like the loss rate, the latency, or even the jitter involved. And then if anything were ever to occur that passes these thresholds, like our maximum loss rate, then you can actually pivot between your WAN links. So effectively setting up a primary WAN link to say all voice traffic should go through WAN 1, but if any of these performance classifiers are not met, then pivot to WAN 2. Of course, we also offer per client bandwidth limiters. So if you didn't want to limit the bandwidth for the entire WAN link, but you only wanted to do it per client instead, That's where the same methodology applies to, where we can jump in here and we can actually say, you know what, all clients involved here, as they pass through the environments, are only limited to 2 megabits per second. I've seen this deployed a ton, especially in dormitories, where you don't want to consume the entire site's internet bandwidth because every student there is streaming 4K Netflix. Be lying if I said I wasn't guilty of doing that in my condo right now too, but it is what it is. And of course here, this is where we can set up our specific traffic shaping rules too. So of course we can apply DSCP tags if you wanted this traffic to still operate with a QoS tag as it's passing through your WAN environment. If this is obviously passing through a VPN, if this just goes to regular internet, it's not going to respect your DSCP tags anyways. But this is where you can start to influence saying, all right, based on things like our application classifiers, based on things like our source or destination addresses, do we want this to be unlimited or limited? Do we want this to be prioritized in the environment, or do we want this to be low priority, stuff like Netflix or gaming? You can jump in here and you can construct an opposite rule set to this. And instead of high priority, you can say very, very low priority for any type of gaming traffic in the environment. That's as easy as it is to go in and construct your SD-WAN environment. But realistically, one thing I wanted to jump to while we still had a little bit of time left is after you actually want to operate and you want to create connectivity between your various sites, if you plug in your MX appliance for the first time, this is what it's going to look like. So your site-to-site connectivity connected to your various other sites is going to be set to off. And so if we look at maybe strategically how we actually go in and create site-to-site connections, it's very taxing. We have to know the addressing on both sides. We have to know the security parameter on both sides. We have to use the same encryption technique. We might have to have the same pre-shared key depending on the TLS version you're using. There's going to be a lot of variables at play here depending on our ability to set up an actual site-to-site connection. Bear with me here. Look how easy it is to set up a site-to-site connection, a secure site-to-site connection on Meraki. From this London site, all we have to do is figure out whether or not we want the site to be a hub, so it's going to connect to all other hub sites, or do we want this to be a spoke site where it is going to operate independently and it's going to have a centralized site it needs to reach. Boom. That's as easy as it is to go in and create this site as a hub site. Or if we wanted this site to operate as a spoke site, all we really need to do is pick the actual egress hub. So all of these other sites right now have been configured as hub sites. And so we can click the San Francisco office, the one we were previously in. And now what this means is that traffic sourced in this London site are going to be sent to the San Francisco site. What's important about this is all of your localized subnets are all going to be located down here. So any VLAN that you've specifically set up at this London site are going to be located here. And you clicking enabled or disabled is going to redistribute these subnets to this hub. So why this is amazing is we don't even have to worry about redistributing routes anymore in our Meraki environment. This is going to do that for us. So now that we're redistributing these localized subnets to the San Francisco site, it's going to redistribute these subnets to all of its other spoke sites. So now what this means is that if another site, let's pick Chicago, for instance, is trying to reach the VoIP VLAN that's located at London, this hub site has already redistributed routes for you. You can even click default route, which means that this London site is going to get a 000 route, and all of its traffic is going to be encrypted and sent to San Francisco. Last thing I'll kind of cover off here before I pass the ball back is from a help tab here, if you need help, what I'm offering you here is that if you click get help up here at the top, and this is something that's going to drastically benefit and really add value to Blackfoot, especially when we start talking about a managed service, is all of our documentation is locally sourced on dashboard too. So if we already didn't make things easy enough from a one pane of glass standpoint, is we also give you the capabilities of jumping in here for things like the installation guides, the best practice guides, and even your ability to construct things like SD-WAN policies. And if you still require help, what's really important about this is you can either be taken to a help forum for all other Meraki users. You can contact your Meraki sales representative, which is just going to take you to Marcus and myself. Or what you can do is you can submit email cases or even call directly into the Meraki support line the 24/7 one Marcus was talking about earlier. So if you do leverage Blackfoot as a managed service and there are issues that come up, just know that on the back end, they have the tools and capabilities, what I like to call a bat phone, directly into Meraki, so that not only are we locally sourcing all of our best practices, but we also offer you the tools and capabilities to reach out to support too. So that really wraps up my quick security and SD-WAN demo for the security appliance. There's a lot we obviously didn't get to, but if you wanted more information on things like reporting, the client analytics, your ability to manage things like switching, wireless, cameras, application engines, or even IoT devices, please reach out to us because we can do a far greater in-depth demo for you too.
All right, thank you for a terrific presentation. Before we get to questions, I'd like to remind, Todd, would you like to remind our attendees how they can reach Blackfoot Communications for more information?
Yeah, the URL that's up on the slide deck right now is a perfect reference point, Bruce. Thank you.
Sure. And Marcus, what about if they just want to get in touch with Meraki Systems?
Absolutely. So they can always email me directly. If there's a chat function on here that I can drop my email in for, or if I put it, I'll just say it out since we're recording.
Yeah, just say it out loud.
So it's MACO double L, so LL, and then A, Z like zebra, so M.A. Colaz. You'd think they would do M. Colazzo, first initial, last name, but first two initials, all the last name except for the last letter. That's how Cisco does it for me, apparently. So M.A. Colaz at cisco.com is where you can reach me. Any kind of technical questions, I'll pass them along to Curtis, and we'll make sure we can schedule some time with you to meet if you ever want to go through any other demos or any other products. Important to note, like I mentioned before, I do cover the public sector side. So if you are in here and you do run a commercial business, I do have resources for you as well. Just reach out to me and I'll make sure I get you with the right people.
Okay, great. I just want to remind everyone that joining our Q&A session is Rob Feenstra, the Network Engineering Manager at Blackfoot Communications. Rob, I'm glad you were able to join us. And just wondering, is everyone ready for some questions?
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, let's start with this one. What sets Blackfoot's SD-WAN apart from other competitive offers?
Yeah, I can take a quick stab at that. So, I mean, I think one of the biggest things, I mean, Curtis's demonstration was awesome, showed how simple it was, but it also kind of showed some of the complexity and like how trying to figure all that stuff out, right? So, you know, one of the differentiators with Blackfoot is really just our people, right? And having that access to technical expertise. So, I mean, I think that's a major differentiator for us as far as, you know, some of the different offerings. I mean, we partner with leading vendors like Cisco Meraki to deliver these world-class solutions, but they're also backed by, you know, a pretty deep team of certified technical expertise that can kind of help do that configuration process and that support process, right? To make sure that, you know, all those different levers and bells and whistles are being, you know, configured in the appropriate way that are making sure that you're actually, your network is actually secure and working for you. I would say, you know, another main differentiator too is our sort of our background of being a telecommunications provider, right? So having the systems, relationships, agreements in place to be able to source circuits, you know, pretty much anywhere you need them, and whatever type of circuit you need too. So being able to pair up all of that, we can really be that end-to-end turnkey solution for you.
Okay. Is SD-WAN right for small businesses?
Yeah, I mean, I can address that one too. Yeah, I would say yes. It's really, I see it as it's right for any size business, right? Depending on what your needs are. You know, we have a lot of retail customers that enjoy the features and functionality of SD-WAN because you get SD-WAN, you get the security features. You also can get some of that redundancy in a really an affordable way. We have a lot of deployments where we have a broadband circuit connected with an LTE as failover. And being able to leverage that in sort of an SD-WAN deployment for small businesses, that's been a really good fit. Some of the other features and functionalities, a lot of those add-ons that Curtis was kind of touching on, you know, around, you know, bolting on additional services like Wi-Fi, things like that, and being able to configure that in that single pane of glass has been a pretty popular choice for some of our smaller customers.
Well, Eric, you mentioned security there in your answer. So what kind of security does SD-WAN offer?
Yeah, Rob, you can maybe touch on that one. You're more of the security expert than I am.
Yeah, it's everything is encrypted and easier using these products and portals, whereas kind of in the past, setting up tunnels and connectivity between branches, just in general, is more complex. Typically, when you add complexity, there's just a higher risk of making a mistake, fact fingering something, sending a network that shouldn't go somewhere, or advertising it. So with some of the tools that they've introduced and are part of the Meraki dashboard, it's a lot easier and less error prone as one, for one side of it, and then also just the security and the encryption is as good as anybody else, and keep your traffic secure across the network.
And
Okay,
touching on that point too, truly backing up what Rob said there, I think one of the things that really differentiates Meraki too, especially from a security standpoint, is there is no piece of Meraki hardware that isn't produced and manufactured with a self-signed certificate. So with that self-signed certificate, this isn't something that you can doctor or you can spoof, because obviously it has to occur within our manufacturing facility and we own the CA there. So with that self-signed certificate, that's what allows the devices to actually connect to the Meraki dashboard. So as Rob said, if we're talking about purely security, you should feel satisfaction knowing that the Meraki hardware you plug in and the Meraki hardware that's going to be managed through the Meraki cloud is done through a secure channel that only we can produce.
okay. Here's a question for, I'm sure this is for Blackfoot. What is managed SD-WAN?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of touched on that in some of our previous slides, but really with a managed solution, really any of our managed solutions at Blackfoot, it is the no upfront cost, predictable monthly recurring rate that delivers a turnkey solution. So all the configuration, design, installation support, ongoing support, hardware replacement, when you're in term, all that good stuff.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Can the MX form IPsec VPN tunnels to non-Meraki devices?
Yes, by all means. So more actually on dashboard, one of the things I showed off was how easy it is to interconnect between Meraki sites. Simply just clicking hub and spoke is an easy way to establish kind of site-to-site connectivity with Meraki peership. But the same extension still applies to non-Meraki devices. If I had just scrolled down a little bit more onto that slide that I was on, from there, you'd actually see that we have the same tools and capabilities to create that site-to-site connection with third-party peers as well.
Okay. And what about, does the MX support high availability configurations?
Yeah, so the MX does support high availability configurations. The follow-up question we usually get with that is, what does that look like in terms of hardware and licensing, right? And the great part is when you're doing an HA scenario, you don't need to buy the second license. It acts as the one license acts as the main license. So you're buying two pieces of hardware, you're setting up the second one as its high availability backup in the dashboard. And then whenever that issue did come, God forbid, where you would need high availability and it would fail over, it's an automatic failover. So it gets done right away. So one license, two pieces of hardware, set up via the dashboard, good to go.
Okay, so what can you provide that a bigger nationwide company offering multiple types of managed SD-WAN services cannot provide?
I can take a first pass at that one. Eric mentioned a couple of things that kind of differentiates Blackfoot's SD-WAN offering. And certainly our legacy and financial wherewithal would be one thing that I would offer up. We've been around for 6 decades and are definitely intending on being around for an additional six decades. The people factor, the people differentiation that Eric touched on, and the accessibility to those folks and their expertise and the round-the-clock support they can receive. Every couple of years, we do a customer satisfaction survey, and almost without exception, our CSAT scores are double that of our national telecommunications competitors. So obviously, over time, we've developed some real strong and strong relationships founded in trust. And again, being a little bit redundant to what Eric talked about, but Blackfoot has some trusted partners in terms of extending our network. Matter of fact, Blackfoot is part of a multi-state consortium. So if we find ourselves in an off-net situation, we need to supply SD-WAN a solution to a customer that's got multiple sites scattered across the Western US. We already have partners in place to reach those locations. I already have MSAs and preferred pricing in place with those partners.
Okay.
If I could just build on that, on that HA comment too. That's kind of another benefit that I guess I'd want to make sure is addressed. So, I mean, if you didn't want to go through additional expenses of having an HA, or you didn't necessarily need that instant, failover that's afforded through an HA pair, that's another benefit of partnering with Blackfoot for a managed solution, is that we're going to have some spare, we spare some of the more common, edge devices that our clients use. So we'll be able to turn that around pretty quickly, and that's all part of that managed solution.
Okay. Here's another question. Does the MX still function in the event that the appliance is unable to communicate with the cloud?
Yes, so that's a great question. So the appliance will continue to operate on the last known good configuration that's set up prior to any kind of internet connection that's lost. It's going to enforce all the configured security policies that are done in that good configuration. So basically, if you were to set up, you have your thing set up, usually it's a set it and forget it kind of security system, right? You set it up, you have it running. If something were to go down, if you lose connectivity to the cloud or internet connectivity at all, it's going to kind of default to that last known configuration. While it's disconnected, configuration changes are limited to basic uplink and port settings accessibility on the local status page until such time as the appliance reconnects to the cloud. So any kind of analytics or reporting data will also be gathered while it's disconnected and will be available when a connectivity is regained. So it's working in kind of a light mode when it's not connected to the cloud, but you are limited in the amount of stuff that you can do when it is not connected.
Okay, terrific. It looks like we've got about one more question. And it is, can security and traffic policies be applied using Active Directory groups?
Absolutely. So that's a lot of questions that we get, especially on the commercial side of business, saying, hey, the security is great. I want to be able to have my customers, or not my customers, my employees to be able to log in and be secure right away, right? Do you integrate with Active Directory? Answer is yes. It's a native Active Directory integration. It's supported, and policies can be applied to clients based on Active Directory group memberships. So on the dashboard there in the security MX tab, which had all those options on it, one of them there, it takes you to our Active Directory where you can sync up with your membership, put your information in there, and it's done automatically on the back end. So that's another thing that we can definitely show you if you're ever interested in learning more about it.
Okay, great. And it appears that we have no more questions, so that will wrap up today's webinar. Our thanks to Todd Tweedy, Rob Feenstra, and Eric Midling of Blackfoot Communications, as well as Curtis Lyon and Marcus Colazzo of Cisco Meraki. But before we go, I would like to remind you about our new webinar rewards program. By attending this webinar, you automatically are enrolled in the Channel Vision Webinar Rewards Program. So just keep an eye out for monthly prize drawings. For information on the program and to see what kinds of prizes you can win, visit our website, channelvisionmag.com/webinar rewards. And remember, you can access this webinar and all other Channel Vision webinars on demand by visiting our website at channelvisionmag.com. And now, from all of us at Channel Vision Magazine, thank you for attending. Have a safe and prosperous day.